In 2011's Captain America: The First Avenger, Captain America climbed aboard Johann Schmidt's aircraft during World War II and crash-landed it to prevent it from dropping weapons of mass destruction on a plethora of major American cities. Despite aiming for the ocean, Rogers actually landed in a field of ice, where the heat of the engines melted the surrounding ice, causing the plane to sink into it before being refrozen with the unconscious Rogers inside. The super soldier was presumed dead, but almost 70 years later, he was found and revealed to be alive, and there's a theory that suggests Nick Fury knew he would be. Let's get into it! As we touched upon in our intro, as far as the world was concerned in the MCU, Steve Rogers, their super soldier otherwise known as Captain America, died a hero at the end of the Second World War. When he sacrificed his own life to bring down the Red Skull's aircraft, his actions became legendary, and he was subsequently seen as a champion of America, who had served his country with valor and bravery. Now, you may remember in Captain America: The First Avenger that Cap dealt with the Strategic Scientific Reserve, the top-secret Allied war agency that Peggy Carter, Howard Stark, and Abraham Erskine worked for. Well, in 1949, they became S.H.I.E.L.D, and they would never stop looking for Steve Rogers' body. Stark Sr. managed to find the Tesseract, and S.H.I.E.L.D. subsequently deduced, quite correctly, that Cap must have crashed the aircraft into what was essentially frozen wasteland. According to canon MCU tie-in comics, then S.H.I.E.L.D. director Nick Fury was still sending out search parties to look for it as recently as 2010. Perhaps rather ironically, it was actually a Russian oil team who accidentally stumbled across the aircraft encased in ice, and Fury was very quick to dispatch a S.H.I.E.L.D. team to the site. Upon their arrival, they quickly discovered that Steve Rogers was in fact still alive. Captain America has since become an important member of the Avengers, helping them to defeat threats like Loki, the Chitauri, and Ultron. But S.H.I.E.L.D.'s persistence and insistence on finding him raises a rather curious question. Why was there such a heavy focus on tracking down Steve Rogers' body if they thought he was dead? Now, your first thought might be to assume that they probably wanted to revive the Super Soldier Project. That's certainly not an unreasonable conclusion to have. Abraham Erskine was killed by an agent of Hydra before he ever had the chance to pass on his secrets. And according to a line of dialogue in 2008's The Incredible Hulk, a lot of people had attempted to duplicate his formula, without success. Genetic samples from Steve Rogers' corpse could obviously have been enormously helpful in achieving such a goal. But the problem is, looking deeper into it, this particular reason doesn't actually make sense when you compile the evidence. While S.H.I.E.L.D. was more than happy to utilize superpowered assets in the field, there isn't really any suggestion that they tried to create their own. Moreover, Nick Fury, who we reiterate was the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. at the time, expressed quite explicit contempt at the idea of super soldier projects, and S.H.I.E.L.D. agents in general were rather hostile towards General Ross when he brought up the idea, as was Tony Stark incidentally. So while it's possible that past S.H.I.E.L.D. directors might have hunted down Rogers' body for the purpose of extracting genetic samples, that motive simply doesn't fit with Fury's personal views. In a nutshell, Samuel L. Jackson's character isn't interested in the Super Soldier Project at all. There's a major hint towards what Fury's real motive for finding Rogers was in the official tie-in comic, Fury's Big Week. In one scene towards the end of the paper-based miniseries, the then S.H.I.E.L.D. director was forced to justify his priorities to his superiors, the World Security Council. The council seemingly only had one focus at the time, the Tesseract, which obviously at that point was in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s possession. As a result, Fury cleverly made almost all of his pitches to them sound like they were geared towards learning more about the powerful object. The reason Fury is putting forward for finding Captain America is that he hopes and believes that Captain America can help him understand the Tesseract, and that doesn't really make it sound as though he's hoping to find a corpse. Quite the opposite, in fact. It's quite obvious that he's looking forward to debriefing him and getting the lowdown on the item that we now know is the MCU's Space Stone. Therefore, could it be that Nick Fury somehow knew, or at the very least had a suspicion that Steve Rogers was actually still alive? The man with the eye patch's knowledge has always seemed to be almost supernatural, like he's always a step or two ahead of everyone else. But this level of precognition and foreknowledge is just crazy. So the idea that Fury somehow knew Captain America was still alive is something that absolutely can't be ruled out. The idea of him actually having the superpower of precognition is, however, unlikely. But there is another possible explanation. Captain Marvel is out very soon, and it's expected to be an origin movie of sorts for Fury. According to Samuel L. Jackson himself, Carol Danvers has the ability to travel through time time using her own powers. If that is indeed the case, it's very possible that she gave Fury a glimpse of the future somehow, and in turn, he may have seen that a resurrected Steve Rogers was playing a major part in it. That same notion would go a long way to explaining his supreme confidence in the Avengers, and indeed his confidence that they would reform when the world needed them. Alternatively, given that there's also strong evidence that Avengers Endgame involves time travel, maybe a scene in that movie will see a past Nick Fury realizing that Steve Rogers is still alive, which would tie the entire MCU story together in a neat little loop. Of course, as things stand, this is nothing more than a theory, but unlike many theories that are conceived about MCU movies, it's definitely one that fits the facts, and it definitely raises the possibility that he knew Steve Rogers wasn't dead when he was found in that ice. What do you think of this theory? Did Nick Fury know that Captain America was alive when S.H.I.E.L.D. discovered his body from that ice? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Screen Rant for more great videos just like this one. And remember, we've got our eyes on you.